Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 81 of Fraternity Foodie. I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. We call these episodes Fraternity Foodie because there is nothing like great food to bring people together. We have another fun interview, and it's coming your way right now. We have with us a good friend and an advocate for Greek life with the experience that one might expect from a seasoned executive and entrepreneur. As the founder of Campuspeak, he developed extensive expertise in business operations, marketing, employee recruitment and training, development of successful contractor relationships, and sales serving organizations of all sizes. As a partner at ForCollegeForLife, he has directed sales, business development, and overall corporate strategy. And in 2012, he published one of my favorite books out there, Motivating the Middle, Fighting Apathy in College Student Organizations, which has become one of the most successful leadership books in the higher education market. And I recommend it to all of my students anytime I go out and we're dealing with student apathy. So we have the real deal here with us today. Welcome to the show, TJ Sullivan.
Number 81, wow.
Can you believe it? I mean, it was just this like baby of an idea, and suddenly we're at 81 episodes.
I'm a little sad you didn't save my has-been but for like episode number 100. That would have been...
Maybe that's what we need to do. I got to think about who's going to be episode number 100.
I'll be watching for who you choose for the 100th episode. That's
I mean, there's got to be like some all-star, like, I don't know. We'll have to figure out what we can do for something like that. But
maybe you can get Lori Hart for that one. That would
maybe. I don't know. I'll have to send her an email. Hopefully she'll respond. I love you, Lori. You're the best. You're the best. So, you know, I'm so happy that you're here with us today because, you know, the truth of the matter is I read your book when I was executive director, and, you know, this was back in 2012, 2013 timeframe. I thought it was fantastic. I was dealing with apathy with chapters all over the country, and I thought it was the perfect solution for the problem that I had at that particular time. So I was recommending your book to all of our fraternity men that I was talking to. And then eventually, once I became a speaker, I saw that you were kind of, you know, headlining this one talk at that particular conference. So I sat in the back of the room and I said, you know, I love the book, but I've never met TJ, so I'm just going to sit in the back of the room and let's see how it goes. You killed it. You killed it on stage. The students were literally like chanting your name. I mean, it was unbelievable.
You know how that book came about, right? Do you have heard the story? Okay, so I think you're interviewing Mindy Sofer for one of these episodes.
Later this week.
Later this week, okay. It is has-been week. Woo, senior week. I'm just kidding. We're all going to meet at the 4 o'clock buffet for dinner. No, that book came about because Mindy was bugging me for years. Mindy's like my best friend. Like, we've been friends for 30 years. And she kept bugging me to write this book. And I was like, I don't want to write a damn book. I speak to college students. They don't want to read another book. No one wants to see a book. You know, speakers crank out the most hideous books. I don't want to be one of those people. And she offered me $1,000 to the charity of my choice if I'd write a book. But she didn't tell me how long it had to be. So I sat down, not kidding you, on the Wednesday of Thanksgiving 2011, and I sat at my dining room table, and in a day and a half, like before Thanksgiving was served around 1 o'clock on Thanksgiving 2011, I had finished it. I wrote the whole damn thing, and it was in a day and a half. And she gave me that check, and I donated it to a dog rescue, and I felt like, woohoo, now leave me alone. And I self-published it. You know, I figured nobody would care about it. And it took off. So that book absolutely came about because someone bugged the crap out of me to just write a book.
I'm going to say thank you to Mindy for doing that, because I think we're better off within the fraternity and sorority community, within all student affairs, because of that book. I just thought it was absolutely incredible. And then, you know, the other story, and of course, I still have our picture together with your book that we took. I show it to all the students because I'm like bragging, hey, I know the author. He's a great guy. You should buy his book. But then when I became a vendor and you know, a speaker in the industry, I remember I was actually a vendor at NGLA, this conference that happens in the Northeast. And I literally drove from Nashville to, I think it was Hartford, Connecticut that particular a year. And so it's obviously a very long drive. I'm running late, okay? The conference is about to start. The students are starting to pour into the exhibit hall, and I'm like sweating profusely because I know that I'm late. I'm carrying all of this stuff. If you're a vendor, you know what I'm talking about. You're carrying all of this stuff for your booth, and I'm sweating profusely, and TJ sees me coming a mile away. He's already set up. He could do his own thing and say, you know what, I'm just gonna care about me and my business. He sees me coming a mile away, and he literally helps me build the entire booth. And I was like, oh my God, this guy could just say, yeah, you're late, sucks to be you. But no, he put down what he was doing and he helped me build my booth. And I was so thankful for that. And I said, this is like one of the most genuine, helpful guys you'll ever meet. And it just blew me away, and I just want to say thank you for being an early supporter and just being a friend.
Well, I've always, I used to have something that hung above my desk that says you become successful by helping others become successful.
Mhm.
And throughout all my years, working in higher ed, in the adjacent higher ed world, I've always tried to help other people, fired up in their early years. I tried to, really try to help them, even though we were competing against them. Other speakers who weren't even affiliated with our company. I always had an ethic when I ran the company, that other company, that if someone called and wanted to was asking about a speaker who wasn't one of ours, our ethic was we gave them that number, we gave them that website, whatever, because if you treat people that way, then they'll come back to you the next time they need something.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have an exhibit hall full of people who think well of us than a bunch of people who are trying to get us in 100 small ways. So it just makes sense. It's a business strategy. You help other people become successful, and eventually that good karma comes back to you. So
God, that's such a good message. We need that message right now. It's so needed right now. I want to go back. I want to try to understand how TJ became TJ. I mean, if we go back, let's say to the college years, you chose Indiana University in Bloomington for your undergraduate experience. So why did you choose IU?
Well, you have to remember, I made that choice when I was 14 years old. I went to college at 15, so it was really weird. I'm the only person I know that took driver's ed in college. But yeah, I came from a kind of a messed up childhood. I had divorce in my family, some serious poverty issues, but I was pretty ambitious, and so I got out as fast as I could from rural Southern Maryland, a place that nobody had even heard of. And Indiana University looked awesome. I can't really remember. I think it was a combination of the fact that it looked like what college was supposed to look like. I'm very visual, so I'm sure that I saw the pictures in the brochures back when we had brochures instead of websites. And I think it looked like what college was supposed to look like. I saw those people having that college experience, and I just wanted to be there. And Indiana seems so far away. I grew up in, like I said, right outside of DC. My dad was a DC firefighter, and I wanted to go far away. And I was also dealing with my sexual orientation, so I wanted to be somewhere where nobody would hear what I might be doing or might not be doing. And Indiana seemed like the most random ass place in the world. In retrospect, I don't know why I didn't just go to California. That would have been would have achieved that goal a lot more efficiently. But Indiana seemed random and far away, and it looked pretty. So I think that's why I chose it.
There you go. All right. So at IU, you decided to join Pi Kappa Phi Fraternity. I'm
Yeah.
also wondering what motivated you to join Pi Kappa Phi as a founding father over all of the other existing organizations on campus.
The answer is quite simple. I didn't want to be hazed. I
Mm.
mean, it's really quite simple. My residence hall room that I moved into when I moved to IU looked out on a fraternity house, and I won't say which one because it probably wouldn't be good for them, but they were crazy hazers, and I saw the young men going through recruitment that in those first few weeks at IU, and I saw how they were being treated, and I was like, I was not interested in being anyone's servant. Um, I was, I had killed myself to get to college. I was also young. I was scared to death that I was going to be beaten by a bunch of 20-year-olds, and I was 15 years old. I was not into that. And also, like again, everything seems to go back to the sexual orientation issue, but I was pretty sure that if they found out I was gay, they would torture me. And
Mm.
so I wanted nothing to do with them. In fact, I thought that I remember telling a friend of mine, boy, they're pretty to look at, but I'm not interested in being one of them. And it wasn't until I was a junior and I was established and I was writing for the student newspaper and I was friends with the student body president and had sort of established myself in that community that Pi Kappa Phi was starting up. So it was kind of an opportunity that snuck up on me, and I didn't anticipate it. I wasn't seeking it out, but like I guess we always say in the brochures, I just like the guys. The guys are great. I saw a bunch of guys who were entrepreneurial and who had the right values and were fun. It also didn't hurt that all my friends had turned 21 junior year and I was still 18 years old. um, so I didn't have anyone to hang out with. All my friends were at the bars and I couldn't be at the bars. So that was part of it too. So it was a convergence of a lot of different factors, but I bought in pretty hard. I something that I had written off and thought was stupid and not for me and not congruent with my values. It turned out I really loved it, and I went to work for the national organization for 3 years. So crazy how things happen. It also, like talking about convergence of things, I was a journalism major, and the salaries of the job offers I got from journalism were terrible. So I said, if I'm going to get paid terribly, I might as well travel the country. So that's when I went to work for Pi Kappa. So yeah.
So what did you do for Pi Kappa?
So I started off, I was hired to promote and build up the what was then called Push America, but is now called the Ability Experience. Pi Kappa Phi is a bit unique in that it has its own freestanding corporation that does service for people with disabilities. And so I was brought in to go out and sell it. I was brought in to travel around the country, go talk to our chapters, get them raising money. I helped start some of the projects that Ability Experience is well known for. I was really passionate about hands-on service. I really felt like the more you experience service as opposed to just raising money for it, the more you'll buy into it, the more the values will seep into your character. So I was really big on not just getting them to raise money, but to actually get out there and do service. And so we did things like spring break experiences and building weekends where we came together and built a playground for children with disabilities. And so, yeah, I did that for a couple of years. And then Dermot Owen, who is a legend, of course, in the fraternity and sorority world, was the CEO at the time. And he convinced me to stay around for another year and write a book, because Pi Kappa Phi did not have a new member book like most other fraternities had. And so he wanted me to write one. So I spent a year writing The White Diamond, published it in 1991, which has now been published 8 more times since then. But I'm excited to say that, since 1991, 30 years, almost every guy who's joined Pi Kappa Phi has read some of my words in order to do that. So that's probably my lasting contribution to Pi Kappa Phi. So
no question, that's a huge honor. I mean, my goodness, that is just tremendous.
Well, if you go to the back of the book and you look at all the authors, there's like 8 of them, but I'm the first one. I'm the first one. So.
That is incredible. I had no idea. That's absolutely incredible. That's news to me. So I'm glad that we're spending this time together, that we get to figure all this stuff out.
And then I turned 21 and I could drink and it was okay. I didn't have to prove myself. No, I'm just kidding. No, I was traveling for, you can imagine how hard this was. I was traveling for the fraternity and I was 19 years old.
Right.
I turned 21 when I was after I left Pi Kappa Phi staff. It was crazy.
That's just wild. So you really got your start speaking. The real big one was from 1993 to about 1999. You were touring the country with Joel Goldman, and you were rocking it on over 1,000 campuses with your educational program called Friendship in the Age of AIDS. So tell us more about how that program came about, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, Joel Goldman was...
I'm sorry, Goldman.
Yeah, that's cool. He was a friend of mine from Indiana, and he was ahead of me, and he went to work for Sigma Alpha Mu fraternity. And so when I went to work for Pi Kappa, you guys, we found each other again, and became friends, and went to all the conferences that you go to when you're working in the fraternity and sorority world. And we'd room together, we'd hang out, we'd go out together, whatever. Then in 1992, I believe, he found out he was HIV positive. And, back then that was a death sentence, and it was just scary as hell. And he started thinking about what he wanted to do with the time he had left. And he said he wanted to go and speak to college students. And I was already doing some of that. And I was also doing some stand-up. And so he wanted me to help him put a program together. We spent a weekend together and decided it would be fun to do it together. Put a flyer together, went to AFA in 1992 with a flyer for our new program called Fraternity Brothers Get AIDS Too, which, believe me, pissed a lot of people off. People, all the fraternities, a lot of the fraternities, I won't say all, but like a huge majority of them did
Mhm.
not like the title, did not like the idea of two well-known fraternity men out there talking about HIV and AIDS, because it was a gay thing and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
And we didn't care. We didn't care. We just did it. And by 93, we had to quit our jobs because the demand was so intense. And so for 7 years, we were lightning in a bottle. We traveled the country. I think the only person who was busier than we were was maybe Will Kime, maybe. Um, but we were out there changing lives and filling auditoriums and making a living, which was fantastic. It's such a great feeling to go from making a really terrible salary in higher ed to doing pretty well where you can buy a house and stuff. So yeah, it was 7 years until 99, and we spoke to about 2 million students, and I really think we made a difference. I mean, I don't know how many people can say that by age 30 they know they've saved lives, and I knew we had done that. And I always said when that program ended that if I died the next day, I would know that my life had mattered. So
Yeah.
so that was a really transformative experience for both of us. And the good news is Joel is still healthy, doing great, old as hell. He works in the celebrity wrangling field, so he's always working with famous people. And I took the agency route. So yeah, different,
Very cool.
but it was a great experience. Great experience.
That's incredible work that you guys did. And you also mentioned Will Kime. I mean, another legend in the industry that I wish that I could have on the Fraternity
Yeah.
Foodie podcast. Just an incredible soul.
He
And
gave me he gave me some of the best advice I'd ever gotten, and I've passed it on many times. Joel and I were out there, and we were charging to do this AIDS program, and we were speaking about it and so forth, and I felt kind of guilty about taking money for that, because that wasn't that it felt icky, right? The icky
Mhm.
part of like you're helping people, but you're also catching checks,
Mhm.
and I'll never forget Will Kime told me the world is full of people making money doing a lot of horrible things. Never apologize for making money, changing lives, and doing good. And that was like, wow,
Wow.
that was phenomenal advice, and I've given that to so many people who are speakers. I'm like, never apologize for making a living doing good. And so yeah, so Will Kime, that's his lasting legacy for me. And yeah, he was a great mentor.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm also curious, back in 1999, of course, you were the founder of Campuspeak, a brand that is recognizable to any campus administrator. You were managing a budget of $5 million. You had a staff of 14 people, over 100 contractors. I'm wondering, what was your vision for this company when you started it, and what were those early years like?
It's hard for me to talk about Campus Speak because it ended so badly for me in 2014 with a big legal battle, and now I don't want to come within 100 feet of them. But it's weird talking about the early years of Campus Speak because they were really wonderful.
Mhm.
I was talking with one of our former speakers, and she said, you need to quit running away from that name, and you need to embrace the fact that from 99 to 2014, you did some great stuff there. And that's still, I'm still going through that. I'm still grieving that business. Um, but I will say that the vision at the time was just to create a place where you could find ethical people who were low maintenance. That was always a big ethic for me, that when you're a speaker and you're going into campus, you're not some VIP coming down on a cloud or something. You're the hired help. This student group is spending their entire year's budget for one night to have you do something, and you need to honor that. So we started some amazing careers. We put a lot of amazing people out in front of millions of people, and it was phenomenal. The other night we had a Zoom call to sort of mark my retirement from the college speaking world, and I was fine when all these speaker types were saying nice things about how I had helped them, do what they want to do. But I got choked up when the staff and the interns started talking, and that was, I mean, if there's one thing I'm most proud of, it's just those young people, those young professionals who are now not even so young anymore, or some of them, but who did great things and really had that first great job experience through this thing that we created. So it's just the ripples. It's just the ripples you create. you say yes to a speaker and they become James Revelata, or you say yes to a speaker and it's Lori Hart, or it's Marianne Calais, or it's Sarah Lowry, or it's Michelle Gabadia, for God's sake. Michelle Gabadia was a grad student when I met her, and now she's a force of nature. She's been a force of nature. I take no credit for her career, but we gave her a starting point, a launching pad, and that was, I'm very, very proud of that. Those years where we made no money, oh my God, it was just, there was no money to be made for such a long time, but it was a labor of love. And that first office for that company had one window in it that looked over the back of a Hooters. So my desk looked out over a Hooters for the first 5 years of that company. And by the time everything ended, sadly it ended badly, but when it ended, you're right, the brand had been built. It was an amazing thing. And so yeah, I don't know, mixed feelings on that company. It's really hard.
You should be really proud. I mean, I know it's hard for you to talk about, so I kind of knew that when we started having those discussions. But the reality is you've changed lives. You've built some, an incredible company that's launched so many careers. I mean, countless. So that has to feel good.
I just wish the name had changed after 2014. That would have made it easier.
Oh
but,
my goodness.
but that's life. That's business. The funny thing is that people, when I talk to people about that story, the chapter of my life, it was 15 years. At the end of the day, it was a business. It was a business, and sometimes in higher ed we forget that there are businesses that have a life that is different from the idealistic image that's put out there. So at the end of the day, it blew up, and they continue. I went and started helped start two competitors, and yeah, business is a bitch, and sometimes it takes a chunk out of you. But no, you're right. I mean, the first 15 years of that company, a lot of stories I'm proud of, and a lot of careers that were built out of that. So yeah.
Yeah. That's huge. Let's talk a little bit about motivating the middle, fighting apathy in college student organizations. This book has a huge following in higher ed. Leadership courses use this book, and it should be in every campus professional's library. And in this particular book, you, of course, talk about the thirds in college student organizations. So for anybody who hasn't already read the book, tell us about these thirds and why that concept is important in college organizations such as fraternities and sororities.
Mike, I think the reason the book did so well, in addition to the fact that it was short, was because so many leadership books are written to be aspirational, to aspire the reader to do something different, to work harder, to try to get out there and change people, right? And my book was not about that. My book was, let's look at what people bring to the table and lead them based on what they bring, right? What a concept. Don't try to change people. Don't work, 80-hour weeks. Just recognize when someone comes to your organization, are they coming super fired up, top third, ready to live it, breathe it, eat it, like make it their whole life? Are they coming because, they like the people and it seems fun and they like the mission, but they don't want to make it like the center of their whole life? That's the middle third. Mm-hmm. Usually motivated by the people that are involved and the feeling they get when they're there. Or are they bottom third people? And bottom third people for me have always been those people that maybe get one thing out of the organization. Maybe it's the affiliation, it's the resume filler. Maybe it's that one friend they have there. Maybe they like the parties, whatever. There's that one thing they get. And when they are allowed to just take that one thing they like and just have limited interaction with the organization, they're okay. But when you're pushing on them and pushing on them and pushing on them and berating them and making them feel inadequate, they become toxic. And so the book really is just talking about how the mistake many of us make as top third leaders is trying to change everybody, trying to make them do more than what they want to do. And the result is negativity and tension. And I've had people tell me that reading this book made them just take a deep breath and relax. It made them actually sit back and enjoy, check their expectations, enjoy their experience more, appreciate each member for what they bring to the organization, because those bottom third members are not bad people. They're just people. And most of us are bottom third in something in our lives, guaranteed, Mike, you're part of several organizations that you haven't lifted a finger on and haven't thought about in 6 months. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes that organization fit in a specific place in your life. And it's really hard when you go to fraternity conferences and everyone's telling you to work 80 hours a week and do more and pull those people in and change them and confront them. And it just, all you're doing is creating more tension and more stress.
Mhm.
So that's why the book's done well, because it was practical. It was just practical.
Yeah.
Gave people a framework to think about their members in a way that didn't make everybody the enemy. And I think that's why they liked it. I think that's why it's still doing well. It's still selling like crazy. I mean, I still get a check every 3 months from this book that took me a day and a half to write. Um, yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy how that book has had a life of its own. I'm very proud of it. I'm also kind of shocked by it. Sometimes I just can't believe that that it's done as well as it has. So
It's so great. And there's so many fun activities that you can do after the students have read it, and then you bring them together, and you can do so many fun things, like have the students themselves select which one of those thirds they're in, and then just sit back and have conversations about it. Like, do you really agree with this self-assessment? And you might have a chapter president that, of course, is going to be in that top third. He might look at it and he'd go, I think actually you've been working really hard this semester. Maybe instead of being in the bottom third, maybe you should come over here to that middle third, and start having some conversations around that and what we can do to start moving people up the ladder, so to speak.
well, but see, that's a flaw. See, you just said you were great till the last thing you said.
I know.
People don't have to move up. That does not have to be the goal, right? In fact, there's many people who have been top third leaders for many years, and senior year they need to get into law school, right? And they need to focus on their academics. And so being bottom third is actually the right choice for them. And we need to change the culture so that it's not bad to be bottom third as long as you're still contributing in a positive way, right? I can be bottom third, come around less, not go to the parties anymore because that doesn't make sense for me, and not volunteer every time something comes up, and focus on my academics, and I could still be a valuable member, and I could still be appreciated as someone who's contributed. It's not about moving people up the ladder. It's about appreciating that everybody's going to make a choice about where they fit into an organization based on the engagement they're able to bring, and appreciating them and making them positive contributors in whatever capacity makes sense for them in their lives.
Right. What if you are a middle third? Let's say you're a middle third member, but there's something preventing you from being a top third. Maybe you have a relationship with somebody on campus, and that's taking a lot of your time from the organization. I mean, do leaders have a responsibility to sit down with that middle third member to figure out what is preventing them from being a top third, or do we just let them be?
No, you let them be.
Yeah.
You let them be. Look, every day you and I make choices about the things we're going to engage with, whether we're going to turn on the news or whether we're going to, go out and talk to our neighbor that's mowing the lawn next door. Every day we make choices about how we use our time, and they're based on what's going on in our lives, right? And so when someone comes and tells you that you're a bad neighbor because you don't go out and talk to people every single day, you get angry, you get defensive. You're like, what? I am a person with my own agency, and I can make choices for my life. I always say, Mike, that people need to, I always say, if you treat your members like adults, there's a greater chance that they will actually behave like adults. And I've always believed that. I think that's part of the reason why I've been able to still speak to students for so long, is because I don't walk into a room and look at a bunch of people that I need to fix or educate or I don't know, change. I'm just trying to help them understand how to be more functional and contributing with whatever they're bringing to the table. And I think that's why when I sit in front of students, they realize that I'm not like trying to be above them, not trying to make them into something they're not. I'm trying to say, let's just talk about real life and let's figure out how to make this organization better. Let's move the needle forward every year a little bit more. So, yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I learned something new in every podcast. This is no exception. I love talking about this with you. I think it's.
Have you read the second edition? Did you read the second edition?
I haven't. I'm going to pick it up though.
I fixed all this stuff. The first edition, I was too hard on the bottom third, and the second edition, I'm much nicer to them. So
I agree. I think, looking back at it, you were pretty tough on the bottom third. You're basically like, there's nothing we can do for you.
Yeah. So just minimize their damage and move on. And then the second edition, I realized I had this epiphany because my teenage son was a bottom third in high school. Like, he went to high school, and here he is with a dad that's like, Mr. Leadership dude. And he went to high school, and he didn't want to join anything. And he said to me, he's like, that doesn't make me a bad person. It just makes me like want to choose where I put my energies. And I was like, oh my God. And I had this epiphany, I was like, I need to be more understanding of the bottom third. So I've spent I think the second edition came out in 2016 or something like that. I've spent the last 4 years trying to correct my tone that I had with the bottom third members. So, yeah.
It's so interesting how it evolves, right? And your different perspectives as a dad changes things, right? So interesting. So I could put this very bluntly. Maybe I'll try to clean this question up. But why are chapter members so afraid to confront, let's say, the troublemaker in their chapter?
Why are they afraid? Because monitoring the behavior of other people sucks. Because
Mhm.
it's no fun. Because you don't want to be an idiot. You don't want to be a jerk around your friends, right? Because it sucks when your entire term as a chapter leader is about enforcing risk management policy. Because I came to college to study engineering, not to be a social worker. Because I wish I could be less responsible and have more fun myself some of the time. Because the idiots in our chapters keep things interesting and they have fans. There's a million reasons, Mike. And it's we always think that if we just teach the students or tell them, if we guilt them into confronting bad behavior, that'll fix everything. It doesn't fix anything. That guy in your chapter who acts like an idiot at the party, half the chapter thinks he's hilarious. And so on any given day, it's like I've got half the chapter that thinks I'm the funniest dude ever, and then I got you who's uptight, no fun, telling me I need to follow the risk management policy. Which one's going to win? You know, it's
Yep.
it's human nature. It's human nature. Why don't people confront? Because people are messy, and because it's not always as cut and dry as whatever leadership thing you heard about at the last breakout at the fraternity convention. It's just real life is very messy, and we have to teach people to talk to each other from a caring place. That's the biggest thing I've always tried to do with my Confronting the Idiot in Your Chapter program, is just tell people, like, go have the conversation. You seen that commercial on TV that keeps running that's been going all year about seize the awkward, like have that conversation. Yeah, when that guy puked on another brother's girlfriend at the party, seize the awkward and go and sit down with him, and don't yell at him because he's an idiot, but talk to him and find out what the hell's going on with him.
Right.
It could be any number of things. It could be the fact that he has body image issues. It could be the fact that he feels like his family loves him less than his brother. Who the hell knows? And you don't, the phones have made us not talk to each other,
Right.
You don't get into those conversations over texting typically. We need to get people willing to talk to their friends again, and so yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Totally agree. One of my presentations is less devices, more connections in
Yeah.
real life. I mean, I agree with you. I think the common denominator to what's happening right now is this phone. I mean, that we are so dependent on, and it's terrible for, your self-esteem. I mean, you're constantly comparing yourself to everybody else on Instagram that's having a better day than you. That's not good for anybody.
No, and it's worse for gay guys, right? You realize that, right? Because we look at the thirst. You look at thirst traps. I look at thirst traps. The problem is, I look at the thirst traps and wish I looked like them. Straight guys don't have that problem. They don't look at the thirst trap women and go, "Oh, I want those boobs." Like that. That's not what you do, right? I look at the guys and I'm like, "Damn, look at those washboard abs." Like, oh, what's wrong with me? Why do I suck so much? So yeah. I mean, it's the phones and social media. Man, I hope I live long enough to see when social media falls out of favor. I really do. I want to see what that world's like again. I want to remember what that's like. So.
Absolutely. So, I was talking to an IFC president. We were talking about putting together a program on his particular campus. We were talking yesterday, and he was, asking me about making this event mandatory, right?
Yeah.
He wants to make sure that he gets all of the students there. And you have a great position and great thoughts on this particular topic. And you feel that we should end mandatory events in fraternity and sorority. Can you explain to the listeners why?
Yes. Can I use a metaphor?
Yes.
So both of my boys are adopted, and every year on their adoption day, on their anniversary of their adoption, historically, since they were tiny kids, they get to choose where we go to dinner that night, right? And there's a phase between age 7 and age 10 where they always want to go to IHOP. That's always both boys, that IHOP was their favorite for about 3 or 4 years. And so we'd always end up at IHOP, and they could order whatever they want. And what do you think they ordered? Did they order the fruit plate? Did they order the healthy protein-filled breakfast? No. They ordered the disgusting pancakes with the chocolate chips, the whipped cream, and all the candy on it, right? And they never ate a meal the entire year that they loved as much as that garbage plate that they would order at IHOP on their adoption anniversary, right? And so I remember, I did the parent thing, like, let's get a fruit cup with that. How about a side of bacon? Let's try to get some nutrition in there. And they're like, no, leave me alone. I want the cake, And so here's the reason I tell you, fraternity and sorority should be the cake of college life. right? It should be the big messy pancakes. It should be the thing you look forward to. If you're having to make fraternity and sorority mandatory, you're doing something wrong, all right? I can't imagine taking my boys to IHOP and forcing them to eat a big plate of messy chocolate chip pancakes because they can't wait to eat it. They would eat it every day if they could. And that's the way fraternity and sorority should be, but we've stopped doing that. We've made fraternity and sorority like joining the Marines. Oh, and by the way, pay $300 a year for an insurance premium that you don't even understand. There's a lot of problems with the student experience for fraternities and sororities. And unfortunately, in the fraternity and sorority industry, we tend to think that the problem is the students. And we never really entertain the idea that the problem might be the infrastructure of what they're joining. I think most fraternities and sororities, if they want to save themselves, should probably go back to the basics and start over. Because the last 30 years of fraternity and sorority life have been really good for lawyers and insurance industries, and they have not been very good for students who are racking up $200,000 and $300,000 student loan bills. So mandatory. Yeah, why should we get rid of mandatory? Because we should be joining things we care about and we love and that add to our lives. And if you, I want student leaders to sit there and think, is there anything that IFC is doing that actually makes people's lives better? And if you can't answer that question, then why do you have an IFC? What is the purpose? Why do you do movies? Why does the programming board do movies on Friday night if nobody comes to them? It doesn't make sense. Stop doing it. Do something that makes sense for people. So that's my problem with mandatory. Mandatory is just lazy leadership. It's just the laziest thing we've ever taught people to do. And that Greek advisor, that fraternity and sorority life advisor who, mandates that everybody send 90% of their membership to something is part of the problem. Because if you were doing it right, people would want to come. They'd see the value. And so, yeah, here I go again with the practical stuff. I'm always the fan of the practical, but I'm also, maybe my next book should be called The Radical Practical Leadership Model or something, like radically practical. Yeah. No one's allowed to steal that. I copyright on this podcast. I copyright radically practical.
Yeah, try that on Facebook too. See if that gets you anywhere.
By this post, nobody can use my images. Yeah, right. Mark Zuckerberg is sweating your status.
I think that's great. And you know what? Here's what I would say to that too, is that, now might be a great time to reinvent fraternity and sorority life, right? I mean, we have this pandemic that's here. We can't count on events anymore in large gatherings. So maybe now's the perfect opportunity to reinvent Greek life and start looking at what our founders were looking at and what the values of the organization really were and what types of members we should be attracting to our organization instead of depending on the big events, which guess what? We really can't do now anyway.
Well, fraternity and sorority life's been in desperate need of a near-death experience for quite a while, and COVID might be the closest we come to in our lifetime. I don't know, but it's always the people who have a near-death experience that reevaluate their lives and decide what's important. And but in fraternity and sorority, in the fraternity and sorority industry, what's important is budgets and housing. How much housing do we own, and how big is our foundation? And as long as those are the things that are the most important priorities, then the student experience is always going to come in. I mean, honestly, Michael, if you look at the priorities in the fraternity and sorority industry, the student experience is so far down the list. It really is. I mean, not for that wonderful staff member who's putting together leadership programs, or for people like you and me who are out there speaking to students, but for like the people who are making decisions, the board members, the executives. I mean, they don't I don't think the average fraternity exec sits around worrying about the quality of the student life experience for an 18-year-old half as much as they think about whether the rent's coming in at the house at University of Iowa. So, and I think that's a fundamental flaw. So maybe a near-death experience would help us get back on track.
Oof, man, I hope it doesn't get to a near-death experience, but I do think we have a great opportunity to reevaluate today.
You're an optimist. You're an optimist.
I am. I admit it. I'm definitely a glass half full kind of guy. I believe in fraternity. I love fraternity. Like you, I recognize that there are problems, and I don't shy away from them. I love talking on stages all across the country about those issues and what we can do to fix them, because I love fraternity so much, right?
Well,
I think we have a great opportunity here.
I love the student experience. I'm as bigger a fan of the student fraternity and sorority experience than I ever was. I'm not a fan of the industry. And that's after 30 years of spending time there. I'm not a fan of the industry, and unfortunately, I think a lot of us, when we think about fraternity and sorority life, we think about the industry, the campus-based professionals and the people at the national headquarters. And what we don't think enough about is what kind of experience is that 18-year-old having who has been through 6 foster homes and an abusive parent and being on food stamps? You know, we don't think enough about that. And that young person goes to fraternity and sorority and finds friends and people that want to look out and build him up and those kind of things. And that's the part that's always been amazing.
Right.
But unfortunately, a lot of times that's not the priority that gets the attention.
Agreed. Agreed. All right. So from 2016 to 2020, you were, of course, partner at ForCollegeForLife. And
Yep.
just recently on Facebook, I see an announcement of your retirement from the college speaking circuit. Oh my God, I'm going to miss you so much. So what made you reach that decision?
Well, I'm old.
You're not. Come on.
I always said I didn't want to be the senior citizen that was hustling for Greek Week gigs. You know, that's just not how I saw myself going into this chapter of my life. My youngest son is close to high school graduation, and I want to do other things with my life. You know, and standing at a booth at AFLV Central in Indianapolis in February for one more weekend of my life made me want to kill myself, and I just didn't want to do it again. So that's when you know that it might be time to move on. So you know, people will still invite me to come talk about the book or something, and I'll definitely do that. But I'm just not going to be out there hustling for that because I'm focusing on other professional areas of my life. I run a chamber of commerce now as my daytime job, which is such a blast, and I want to write again. And I needed to clear out some of the things in my life that just weren't working as well. And COVID certainly helped, right? COVID has taken a real bite out of the industry, so it just seemed like the timing seemed right, and it's like only so long can you ignore the knocking on the door before you open the door and realize, you know, what's there. And so I decided to go out now, and I feel really good about it. You know, honestly, speaking and fraternity and sorority can be something I do when a really cool opportunity lands in front of me, not something I'm chasing all the time. And so that's good for me. That's good for me. So I'm happy about that decision.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, whenever you do write that next book, I'm going to be your first customer. I'll tell you that right now.
Practical. Radical, practical.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that. You're now the executive director of the Superior, Colorado Chamber of Commerce.
Yep.
So what types of things do you do in this new role?
You know, it's really fun because it's back to like when I was starting that company back in '99. You know,
Yeah.
it's me and one other staff member. We're putting out newsletters, e-newsletters, and we're putting together events, and we're trying to figure out how we can offer educational programs that make sense for these, you know, small business owners. And it's fun. It's like back to the stuff that I enjoyed doing at the beginning. So it's humbling, but you know, sometimes restarting is good, you know, and association management is an awesome field because you're working on communications and membership and all that stuff. So I'm having a blast. I'm in my office right now. You can see all the papers behind me. You can tell I got lots of ideas up on the bulletin board, and it's fun. You know, I'm having a good time, and it also allows me to be home. You know, honestly, 30 years, few million frequent flyer miles, I just was ready to not be on the road all the time. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I've been running this chamber for about 2 years, and it's fun and cool, and the people are amazing, and the community is beautiful. Oh my God, I'm up in Boulder County. You know, I'm like 5 miles from downtown Boulder. So yeah, that doesn't suck. And yeah, you know, I want to be back. I wanted to be back into something that challenged me and made me excited when I got up in the morning. And even though it's a pretty small operation, my office is, I'm basically like in a cubicle. And after running a large company, you know, what I consider to be a large company, and having all these staff members and everything, it's like back to basics, and it's cool. I'm liking it. It's great.
That's really cool. I love it. That's awesome. So we do love good food here at Fraternity Foodie. That's no secret, right? So if I'm, let's say, in this Boulder, Colorado area that you speak of here, where should I go in order to get a great meal next time I'm in town?
Okay. So you warned me that you were going to ask me about food.
Yes.
And I need to make it clear that even though I work up in Boulder, but up in Boulder County near Boulder, I live in Denver. So like my life and like when I'm eating out, that's down in the big city, right? So so you asked me for like restaurants or like things that are good. So the one that like is the place where I always want to have my birthday dinner is called Cafe Brazil, and it's been around for 150 years in Denver, and it's up in the Berkeley neighborhood. So it's not in downtown, but it's up in the northwest part of the city, and it's just, I haven't been there since COVID, so I'm a little bit afraid that it's gonna make me cry if I go back. Like I'm sure it's somewhat affected, but the food, lots of seafood, Brazilian food, the music, the dim lighting, the amazing waiters and waitresses. I mean, just like Cafe Brazil, favorite, like the go-to, the one that like if they close, I'm gonna have to go and like remove a brick from the building because like I have an emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
Um, and then in terms of just pure like rock star food, there's a place called Rioja, Rioja, downtown in Larimer Square, and Jennifer Jasinski is the chef, and she is remarkable. And I love it when someone pours their heart and soul into one place. That's amazing. And the food is always amazing. She does not mess around. It's not cheap, but it is mind blowing. And I, other than the fact that she still serves octopus, which I have an ethical problem with, and I've told her about that. I think it's a I think it's an amazing place. So if you're coming to Denver and you're only having one meal and you're like downtown, go to Rioja, but make sure you get a reservation because it's not a big place and it's amazing. So
Sounds delicious. I do eat octopus, so I don't have a problem with it. I
no,
will eat it. I'll take all the octopus. Send
no,
it to my
they're too,
way.
they're too intelligent. No dolphins, no octopus, no elephants, right? Like you just there's certain animals. I'm a huge I am like a huge animal rights guy. Like and I'm not a vegetarian. I should be, but like there's certain animals that are on my no eat list, and
Oh,
you can't.
interesting.
No more octopus for you.
Oh,
Go
wow. So
go
interesting.
read the book The Secret Life of the Octopus, and you will never eat octopus again.
All right, maybe I'll pick up the book. And you know what's interesting because I'm a carnivore. I love every kind of food, every kind of animal. And my daughter, she's a vegetarian.
Yes,
She comes out and there you go. And so now I have to adjust my cooking. I gotta, start thinking about these things.
you'll
And
be
you told me
healthier. You'll be healthier.
that. You're
Yes.
probably right. You're
We
probably
eat,
right.
we eat vegetarian about three meals a week, and it's
Okay.
good. And then when we do eat something that's like shrimp or something, like who cares about shrimp? Um,
We don't care about them.
nah, we avoid the pork and the beef as much as we can. We're like, we're turning into we're just trying to make sure our cholesterol stays down. That's what it is. It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Listen, I mean, you and me both. I mean, we got the same issues, man.
well,
All right. So let's say one of our listeners, I'm sure everybody loves listening to you talk. So if anybody who's a listener, let's say they want to follow you on social media, maybe they want to ask you some questions, where should they go to connect with you?
just avoid me for about a year. Could you just like make a note to yourself and like, because I still have to figure things out. Like I just made this retirement announcement, and so I have a website tjsullivan.com, and it's a disaster right now because it still has all my speaking stuff up and like, oh, here's where TJ is going to be, like with all the 2020 dates that got canceled. So yeah, I'm my website's a disaster right now, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm on Instagram at intentional TJS.
There you go.
I interact with people there because it's kind of benign and I don't have to like please everybody. Facebook, please don't friend me on Facebook. I'm trying to get rid of people. Like, do you ever do that? Do you ever like call your Facebook friends like you go, I don't know who this person is?
Yeah, it happens all the time, especially around birthdays. Maybe
Yes.
that's the time when I need to start
Oh,
dialing it back on Facebook.
no, birthdays are when you delete people.
Delete people.
You unfriend people on their birthday, and they're like distracted, and they don't even notice. And like, so it always tells me whose birthday it is, and I'm like, oh, these 6 people, I don't know who the hell these 4 people are. I'm like, and I always look to see if there's mutual friends that I like. Like, you ever clicked on someone and you like have one mutual friend and you don't even know who the mutual friend is? Yeah, delete, right? So,
Definitely delete.
yeah, because Facebook came out when Joel and I were first traveling, and the idea was get as many friends as you can. And I still have people from like 1998 that I'm like, why am I friends with these guys? Was Facebook around in '98? I don't even know.
I don't even know. All right. So it's Instagram, intentional TJS.
Just
Follow
leave me
him
alone
there.
for a while. Just leave me alone for a while. I'm not interesting. I have nothing. Just
You're so real. You're so authentic, TJ. That's why I love you. I think you're amazing. I'm a huge fan of all of your book and your speaking and you just being a genuine person that wants to help other people. I mean, it comes across to me and I'm grateful to know you. I'm grateful to be your friend and I'm your biggest fan. You let me know when that second book comes out. I will promote it to all the students in the country.
thank you. You're very good to me, and good luck with Greek University. And you have many of my friends on your roster, hey, this work is really important and it's really good, and I'm glad you're doing it, and I'm glad I'm leaving it, and I'm okay with that. So, but you haven't seen the last of me, I guess. So thank you.
Just like you know the value of working with really great people. I am blessed to work with some of the most incredible people in the industry. And I think that's what keeps me going. And then just watching like their careers start to explode and then ultimately like their skills are noticeably better. We get together every year to kind of work on our craft and you see the improvement that they've made over the last few years. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, this is huge. And so when you're changing lives, I think that's really where it's at, right? At the end of the day, I mean, the money, whatever, it comes, it goes, it's not here anymore. But what's left is all of these great people and their careers, and the fact that they're on stages all over the country sharing their story. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, yeah. When you affiliate with great people, it's a blessing. So
Yeah, amazing things happen. There's no
I'm glad,
doubt.
and I feel like you're more toward the beginning of your journey, and I'm like toward the end of mine. But we're not that far in age. How the hell did this
We're
happen?
not. We're
How the hell
totally
did this
not that far in age. I don't know. I still have so much energy, and I just love working with college students, and like, I just love it. I mean, tonight I'm going to be working with the students in San Antonio, Texas over Zoom, of course. So I don't even have to get on a plane. I don't have to sleep in an empty bed in a hotel room somewhere.
No.
I'm going to speak tonight to all the students there at Trinity University, and then I'm going to go to the next room and have dinner with my family. I
Yep.
mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, you're embracing this virtual stuff. For me, the thing I miss the most is the stage, because that's where I came from. I was a theater kid, and then I did stand up for a while. And my favorite thing is knowing how to use my voice level on a microphone. And I'm a performer, and I just I once I realized that COVID was kind of taking that away, I was like, okay, but when maybe I'll reemerge with a comedy career or something like that. We'll see.
I love it. I would absolutely sign up. You let me know which cities you're going to be in. I'm going to fly
Yeah.
out and I'll see you.
Denver for a while. Denver for a while.
Denver for a while. All right, that's fine. That's fine. All right. Well, listen, I'm still upset that we're not going to run into each other at airports around the country as we're chasing gigs all over the place. And I just see you and I'm like, that's TJ Sullivan. So I'm going to miss you out on the road. But just know that I just want to say thank you on behalf of all fraternity and sorority students, on behalf of all the speakers that you've influenced. You've done some amazing things with your life, and you've made this world a better place. And so I just want to tell you, thank you for the
Thank
work
you.
that you've done. I appreciate it. Fraternity and sorority is better because of your presence, because of your voice. And so I really appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of all the fans.
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And listen, if you're a listener, thank you for listening. If you like this interview with TJ, please like it and share it. And we will see you on the next episode of Fraternity Foodie. Bye for now.